Michael, the rise of the Chinese auto industry and especially its pivot to EVs has been absolutely fascinating. And in the previous interview, you kind of gave us the formula for it. Um, what Give us some examples from the industry itself, like
Mm.
BYD and other companies, how they managed to work that system to scale up as rapidly as they did.
It's a great story in the sense that between 1995, when I first got to China, and 2020, China was really a playground for global automakers building internal combustion engine cars. We used to call it, when I was at General Motors, a profit machine. Every year you would count on more growth, more profits, and the Chinese consumer absolutely loved foreign brands. Not like Japan or Korea where they went for the home team. They love their Mercedes and Buicks and Toyotas and Hyundais. So what changed? Tesla, 2020, starts manufacturing the Model 3 in Shanghai. And overnight, I saw the Chinese consumer have a complete and total transformational mindset and said, whereas they thought EVs were dull and boring and range constrained in the past, oh, this is the future. This is super cool. Not only is it an EV, but it has all kinds of technologies and over-the-air updates. We want more of those. And it's at that moment that the Chinese who had been kind of hanging around, your BYDs and startups like NIO and XPeng, got this halo effect. Oh, these guys are kind of like Tesla and they're making electrics and they have technology. Let's buy them. And we've seen just a complete sea change, Markham, from Chinese EVs as a share of the market in 2020, 5%. This year, 50%. 5 to 50% in 5 years in the world's largest market. It's mind blowing. And then in addition to that, the Chinese have done a great job of bringing technology into the car. So I was just in the UK last week, and I asked the people at BYD and MG, why are so many British people buying these Chinese cars? And they said part of it's because they're electric, but even a bigger part is they get inside the car, they see the big screen, over-the-air updates, technology. So this is historians will look back at that 2020 moment when Tesla changed mindsets, and the Chinese capitalized on that. Um, I'll pause there. I know people would be curious about who's who among the Chinese players. We can get to that in a moment. There's so many of them, but we try to distill them into the main players.
Before we get to that,
Yeah.
I want to. There's a key characteristic of the Chinese EV makers that I don't think we in the West really have grasped yet, and that is their deep connection to the electronics supply chains that have built up over the last 20, 30 years to make iPhones and consumer
Yes.
electronics. And so you see companies like Xiaomi who were iPhone makers and now they're automakers because it's
Yeah.
not a big leap from a phone to a car as it is from an internal combustion engine to an EV.
That's right. It's not it's a natural extension of their core business, which is electronics. And you gave a great example. Xiaomi met Elon Musk, late June, the founder of Xiaomi met Elon Musk in 2014 and said, "What you're doing is sensational. I hope one day to build a car too." So he already had it in his brain. And then a couple of years ago, they've gone from nothing to like a phenomenal product that's setting world records at the Nürburgring track in Germany. And you go, how is this possible? Well, they have the EV platform, but on top of that, they've just layered in all the technology from the electronic sector. You're exactly right. And that's what's happening. That's what makes China such a big threat globally.
And there's another angle to this, and that is that Western automakers often take 4 to 6 years to bring a new model to market, and the
Yeah.
Chinese do it in like 18 months. And that seems to be more of an electronics characteristic than it is an automaker's characteristic.
You're absolutely right. When I was in Germany last month, the engineers there said, we're very methodical and careful, and we have testing and want to make sure everything's secure. And then their heads on a swivel because they see the Chinese come and go, we can do that in less than half the time. And if there's a mistake, we'll quickly fix it. So it's like a different language, a different culture has entered the arena, and the Chinese have the momentum for sure.
Well, let's talk about some of these companies that you alluded to earlier. I mean, everybody knows the word, or the name BYD, which has started
Yeah.
out as a battery maker, and so that gives them an advantage because they have that integrated supply chain and the battery being the most important part. But give us some of the a flavor of some of the other EV makers in China.
hmm So one way to think, as you mentioned before, there's like 107 brands in the market. It's like nowhere else in the world. And many people say, you can't have 100, it's not sustainable. There's going to be consolidation. Well, China being China, it's a hybrid economy. The state plays a big role. Companies can hang around because every mayor wants to have an automaker in its backyard. So, what do we do about this? What I've done is, over time, you start to think, okay, there's the top 10 in China. BYD's in a class by itself, 5 million cars a year now. Valuation is only behind Tesla and Toyota globally. They're number three. And then you have the next 10. I call them the next 10. Five of those are legacy automakers, make more than 1 million cars a year. They've been around for a long time, mostly ICE vehicles. Five of them are your techno gang of five, which includes Xiaomi, NIO, XPeng, Li Auto, Leap Motor. These are the new guys on the block that are the technology kings. And each of those companies that are the techno kings was founded by a billionaire who made their money in technology first. And then, so what is the West confronting? The legacy automakers are able to deliver vehicles at very low cost, and the technology guys are able to deliver vehicles at really impressive levels of, features. So it's like a one-two punch. How do we got to compete on cost and we got to compete on high quality technology. That's the dilemma that legacy automakers in the West face today.
Well, where are we going to go? Like I've read that the industry over the period, the last little while has gone through waves of consolidation, and the state actually doesn't want 170 EV makers; it wants
Uh-huh.
12 or 15, and it
Right.
will force these companies in one way or another to consolidate. Is that true, and how might they do it?
That's one of the big urban myths of China. The state does, they have an expression in China, the top makes the policy, the bottom takes countermeasures. 上有政策, 下有对策. If you ask 1,300,000,000 Chinese people, they all know this expression and they'll all nod and go, yep, that's how China works. So at the central level, Xi Jinping and his lieutenants go, we don't want so many players. We want five or six of them and big and strong and globally competitive. And then the mayors of the cities, like in Shanghai and Guangzhou and Chongqing, go, hey, but it's not fair that they have an auto industry, we don't. So there's this tug of war between the center and the provinces. And most times, all the years I was in there, the provinces win out. We end up having a lot of players hanging around in what a way to think about it is not the most efficient system, but it's very effective because that hyper competition of too many players produces a handful that are really, really good.
And
That's
those
the system. Yeah.
Michael, thank you very much for this. The insight into the Chinese competition for this sector, and I don't think we quite have grasped yet how strategic it is.
hmm
And I know that the Biden administration did because they saw it as part of China's sort of geopolitical rise as their primary rival, and China does because it talks about industrial diplomacy and
hmm
technological advanced technological manufacturing as part of its geopolitical power. And the
hmm
auto industry is just front and center in that, isn't it?
It totally is. It's like the face of all these efforts behind the scenes to build an industrial powerhouse that where they lead in and this is the auto industry is actually just the most recent industry that China has captured. So solar panels, shipbuilding, steel, drones, in one industry after the other, we've seen the Chinese just actually come in and utterly down a 70, 80% of global production centered in China. monopolies, basically. And I don't think the world's ever seen something like this at scale and with this ambition.
Well, clearly in Canada, we haven't wrapped our heads around it yet. So
Uh-huh.
thank you very much for this. Appreciate it.
All right, absolutely. It's time for us in North America to get our heads around it. Like the clock is ticking and China's at the doorstep. So what are we going to do?